Hey, everybody. Welcome to the first of what I hope will be many Mr. Cashflow live episodes. Um, Not sure it'll be exactly the same time every week, but we're hoping to make this a weekly live stream to provide information and help for businesses in all kinds of areas that have to do with their cash flow. I am very, very excited that my first guest on my first Mr. Cashflow Live is a good friend of mine, Jonathan Wiener, the president of Workforce Training Partners. If you have any questions as we go along for Jonathan and or for me, please leave them. Of course, we always appreciate the likes and comments. We solicit those, and we'll try and answer every one of the questions before we get done today. So with that and no further ado, I want to welcome my friend Jonathan Wiener. John, thank you for joining me.
It's an honor to be the inaugural guest. David, this is pretty awesome.
So we're here today to talk about the Georgia Retraining Tax Credit. You know, I deal with a lot of CPAs. I deal with a lot of business owners and building owners and things. Not all that very many of them are familiar with the Georgia Retraining Tax Credit. So before we kind of get into the nuts and bolts of it, let's find out a little bit about you. How did you get into it? How did Workforce Training Partners come about? Where are you originally from? Fill us in.
Oh, my goodness gracious. I'm originally from Florida, so it's a lot warmer there right now than it is here in Georgia. And it's going to be even more so in a couple of days as it gets to be 24 here in town. So I missed the Florida weather a little bit, but came up to Georgia and I became involved in the economic development process with the state. I worked for an organization called Georgia Quick Start. That was the organization that was responsible and still is for administering the Georgia Retraining Tax Credit. And so as a state employee for 18 years, I dealt with the Georgia Retraining Tax Credit, working with business and industry in our state to make sure they understood this incentive and to make sure they were taking advantage of it. Several years ago, well, we're going to call it about 8 years ago now, I started my own firm providing customized training to organizations. And as part of that, a couple of years later, we started consulting on the Georgia Retraining Tax Credit, working in conjunction with another very close friend of mine, his name Michael Jones. He was responsible for developing the processes and procedures for the Georgia Retraining Tax Credit for Georgia state government. He did that for a while, started his own business. We got back together, and here I am.
The rest is history, right?
The rest is history, as they say.
What is the Georgia Retraining Tax Credit and how does it work?
So the Georgia Retraining Tax Credit is an economic development incentive program. The state of Georgia has well over a dozen tax credits that incent companies to do something. For example, you've heard of enterprise zones. There's an incentive to establishing a business in a certain geographical area. You have port tax credits that provide an incentive to export and import goods through the port of Georgia. You have other tax credits like the Historic Preservation Tax Credit, which incents organizations and municipalities to preserve historical buildings in their area. And you have the Georgia Retraining Tax Credit, which is the state incentive that encourages business and industry to invest in new technologies and train their employees in how to use these technologies. And what the incentive is up to 50% of the implementation costs for the training process. So for companies that invest in new technology, there are wage costs and other costs that are involved in training employees on how to use this technology. The state is going to give you half of that, up to half, as a direct tax credit, which is money in your pocket and greater cash flow.
So whatever you spend on this training, you can get 50% of it back.
Up to 50%. There are some costs that are eligible, some costs that are ineligible. There are some employees that are eligible, some are ineligible. And so what we do is we help companies navigate the complexities of this part of the tax code, and we help them take advantage of the tax credit that they could be eligible for, which is up to 50% of all of the wages of employees as they train in these new technologies, up to 50% of other costs that are involved in the training process. For example, if you hire a vendor to provide training, up to 50% of that is eligible. If you have to send employees out of town, out of state, out of the country to train on new technologies, perhaps up to 50% of those costs. And if you're going to treat everybody to 2 dozen chicken biscuits and coffee in the morning just for training, save the receipt because that is eligible too.
Oh yeah, that's good. I think I'm going to have my company send me to Europe for some training. I don't know exactly what they'll train me on, but I think I will do that. So is it worthwhile doing for a small business as well as a large business?
Absolutely. Small companies can take advantage of it as well. I work with some companies that are only 5 or 6 employees, and they are very, very happy to have this tax credit
They need
because
the money more.
as what?
They need the money more.
They need the money. And if you take a small company that has invested, let's say, $10,000 in new technology, and I can save them up to $5,000 in on their state corporate tax obligation. Now that $5,000 may not mean a lot to the Deltas, the Georgia Pacifics, and the AT&Ts of the world, but to that small business owner, that's a good chunk of somebody's salary. It could be the difference between investing in additional tools and equipment for their business. It's economies of scale, Dave.
So is it something that a company could do on their own?
Well, it's like doing your taxes. If you are a large corporation, can you do your tax return on your own? Have at it. The instructions are on irs.gov. Good luck with that. So there are some larger companies that have full-time employees in their accounting department that have learned how to do this. And by all means, companies can. But the rules, the processes, and the procedures are somewhat complex. And it takes somebody who knows the tax code and has had the experience that I've had in having these kinds of applications approved for dozens of companies over the years. I've saved companies millions of dollars on their Georgia corporate tax obligation because I know how to do it. So you could do it by yourself, or I'd be happy to do it for you. And my fee is a percentage of tax savings. So I only get paid when you save big.
So what exactly do you do for them other than identify the areas that, do you just identify the areas that they can apply for the tax credits, or what all do you go through and do for them to earn your keep, so to speak?
So the process is, step one is to ensure that companies are eligible, meaning a company is a for-profit enterprise. They're making money, so they have a Georgia corporate tax obligation. They have W-2 employees that are receiving wages and salaries during the training process. And then they're investing in eligible new technology. And so then if companies meet that criteria, what I do is I have to collect the who, what, where, when, why, how, and how much of each one of those training activities. I collect that data, put it into a big spreadsheet, we crunch the numbers, and then in addition to that, I have to collect biographies on the trainers. I have to collect training materials because the state wants to see the methodology that companies have used in the training process to make sure it was good training. So I collect all of that. I prepare the application for the company. Each application in the state of Georgia, it's 100% audit, or I should say 100% review. Every application is reviewed by a state government representative to ensure that we have followed the process the way the process has been written. And then once the application has been certified, then the state will apply what I call the magic signature, send it back to me because I've walked it through for the client. And then I return it to the company CFO or their CPA or both, so it can be applied to their tax return. and
Wow.
against the tax that they owe.
So there's a lot that goes into it.
There's a
A
lot
lot
that
more
goes
than,
into it.
yeah. So from what I heard you say, 1099 employees do not qualify?
1099 qualifies do not qualify as trainees because the incentive, remember, this is a Georgia state economic development incentive. Economic development is about jobs, right? It's about business growth and it's about jobs. So the state of Georgia wants companies to hire Georgia employees, Georgia residents, and put them on the payroll. So 1099ers are not eligible to be counted as a trainee. However, some 1099ers can be counted as a trainer. So let's say you have a technology and you have a 1099 employee who has been tasked to go out and learn this new technology and train the employees of the company, then some of those costs are eligible to be counted. And that's part of the complexities that I help companies navigate.
Fantastic. So I don't know why anybody would want to try and do it by themselves. Um, so do you have any examples of what, say, maybe a small or medium-sized business could save just from your history?
I get that question a lot. Jonathan, but before I engage you, how much am I going to say? And the answer that I tell everyone each and every time is, it depends. It really does depend. How many employees have trained? What is the level of training that they have received? What is the technology that we're training on? And so, you could do sort of rule of thumb calculations. Okay, we bought this new machine, we put it in the warehouse, and let's say, for example, it's a machine that shrink wraps boxes, and I have 10 employees that they each make $20 an hour, and we did 1 hour in the classroom and we did 1 hour of training on the floor learning how to use the machine, and we paid a vendor. Then I calculate those costs and we add it all up and we divide by 2, and that's a very simple formula. It gets a little bit more complex than that when you start analyzing data. And what we're trying to do is make sure that the calculations are used following the rules that the state has established for us. We want to make sure everything's right. And so my job is to help companies using those rules help maximize their tax credit. So the short answer is it's difficult to estimate, but typically companies that have 300 or 400 employees and they're training most of their workforce, I have seen savings anywhere from $30,000 to $60,000 plus. And
Wow.
that's the salary perhaps of a training manager that's
Yeah.
responsible for coordinating training. So the retraining tax credit can be an avenue to fund a position or to provide new technology, or like we say in the cash flow business, you put it to the bottom line, and that has benefits as well.
It's all about cash flow, right?
It's all about cash flow.
So about how long does it take from start to finish for you to do a project?
Smaller projects, smaller companies, provided I get all of the information that I need, it could be done in about a week. Some of my more complex projects, I've got one client that has 600 employees and they have multiple line items of training. That takes me a few months to do just because I have so many people to talk to. Those companies usually file for an extension. So they're not going to file by March 15th. They have until September 15th of each year to file their corporate tax return. So I work on those projects over the summer. Companies that have 30 to 40 employees, I can usually knock that out in about 4 to 6 weeks. And then the state of Georgia wants to have 30 days to review applications. So I always have to tell these companies that want this advantage, if you're going to file your taxes by March 15th, then we need to be done by February 15th.
So it's not too late. If somebody wanted to get something done for 2020, they might have to file an extension, but it's not too late to get the work done. Is that what
It
you're
is
saying?
not too late.
Okay.
Not too late at all. There are a couple of us here in the office. We'll be working overtime between right after New Year's all the way through March 15th. and all the way through April 15th for C corporations. You have your S corporations and your LLCs that are going to file by March 15th, your C corporations April 15th. So we'll be working pretty hard all the way through first week in April.
And if they need to do an extension, they can.
And they can. And extensions, especially if you have a good relationship with your CPA, an extension is easy to do.
Very, very good. Before we go any further, let me welcome you guys again to the live stream, and those of you who will be watching this on a recorded basis. If you have any questions or comments for either me or Jonathan, put those in the comments section, and we will try and get to some of those during the live session. If it's after the live session is over, we will certainly answer by email. So we're glad to have you here, and we would love to have some questions that Jonathan can address or that I can address. Angie says, this is great to know, Jonathan. I think so too. And that's why, Angie, why I asked Jonathan to join me on this first live stream that we're doing for Mr. Cashflow Live. I think it's information. Most of you are aware that I'm involved with engineering-based cost segregation, which is a huge tax advantage for building owners and real estate investors. Jonathan is involved with that, some with me as well, but the retraining tax credit is a little bit lesser known, I think. It's great for people in the state of Georgia. Are there other states that have it, Jonathan?
There are other states that have incentives for businesses to train their employees in new technologies. I believe there's one in California, which is a grant. I think there's one in Illinois, which is a grant. And this is why it's great to do business in the state of Georgia, David, because with the retraining tax credit specifically, the state says, you guys go run your business. Let's not get tangled in a lot of red tape. Go run your business, invest in your technology, train your employees, and when you're done, tell us what you did. We'll certify your application and give you a tax credit. In states like California, companies have to apply for a grant. The grant gets approved, and then there's a government employee that is probably reviewing proposals and receipts. They have to have checks cut, and that's really a mess. And the great thing about the state of Georgia is we do our best. When I say we, I still think of myself as a member of the economic development community. We try to get rid of the red tape, and we try to give business owners exactly the tools and the processes that they need in order to be successful. And the retraining tax credit follows that spirit by telling business owners to take care of your company, take care of your people. And by the way, the things that you did that qualify, tell us before you file your tax return, and we'll make sure you get that tax benefit.
You got to love the state of Georgia.
That's Georgia.
That's fantastic. If somebody lived in another state, say California, and wanted to find out about it, what's the best way for them to go about finding out what's available to them?
www.workforcetrainingpartners.com. I have information on my website about the Georgia Retraining Tax Credit. I'm happy to answer any questions about it. Georgia.org, which is the state of Georgia.
I'm specifically talking about people who are in different other states that maybe you don't help with the tax credit. How do they find out if something's available?
Can you be more specific with your question?
Well, you're dealing specifically with Georgia.
Yes.
If somebody's watching that lives in California, but they want to find out if it's available, if something like that's available to them, how would they find it?
Right. So the best thing to do is to go to the website for their state government's economic development office. Here in Georgia, it's the Georgia Department of Economic Development. In Florida, I believe they call it Enterprise Florida. So every state has an economic development office that will list all of the incentive programs available to businesses in that state. And by the way, if there is a company that is headquartered in another state but does business in Georgia, that company is eligible for the Georgia Retraining Tax Credit. I work with several of those companies. So just because a company is not based here doesn't mean that they're not paying a Georgia corporate tax obligation. Companies that are headquartered in other states, yet they have a manufacturing facility here, they have Georgia employees, and they're investing in our state, they get that tax benefit. and it's very
Excellent.
lucrative.
One last question I get all the time about cost segregation. Is this going to trigger an audit?
That's a great question. And the Georgia Retraining Tax Credit does not trigger an audit. Out of the 2 decades that I've been working with this, I have never once heard of an instance where a retraining tax credit has triggered an audit. It is not an item that the Georgia Department of Revenue is going to look at first. Now, a little less than 10% of Georgia companies are audited every year. Not because they did anything wrong. It's just, hey, who are we going to audit this year? Well, let's audit company ABC. Well, as part of ABC, if company ABC took advantage of the retraining tax credit, yeah, the Department of Revenue auditors are going to look at it. And part of my process is maintaining the integrity of data retention, of document retention. And so every document that I receive from the company, we archive. So in the unlikely event that the Georgia Department of Revenue wants to review the process, how'd you arrive at this figure? Just like with the IRS, you give it to them on a flash drive and you say, here you go, knock yourselves out. All of the data is there, including a good part of the math. So,
And the state's already approved it anyway, right?
and the state has approved it, just like we said before. And thank you for bringing that up again. Every application has to go to the state of Georgia. It must be reviewed, and a state employee certifies that we did it correctly. So it's with that state certification that companies can have their CPAs apply the tax credit against what they owe.
Fantastic.
Cash in your pocket.
We've got another question from Angie. Angie says, I'm a financial advisor. What type of clients or situations can you be of help? I don't want my clients to miss out on tax saving opportunities. Bless you, Angie. My dad, who was a CPA, told me tax evasion is a crime. Tax avoidance is mandatory. So I think both Jonathan and I can be helpful that way. I'm going to go ahead and put up some contact information. So, if you want to get in touch with Jonathan about the Georgia Retraining Tax Credit, here's his email address. You can contact him directly there. He will be more than happy to tell you which clients he can help, which clients he can't help, and how he can be of help. And then at the same time, if you have clients who need help with their cash flow, or they own a building, either investment or commercial, and they could use an engineering-based cost segregation study, which not everybody's all that familiar with, but I am, and I'm more than happy to help you decide who can and who can't. You can contact me right here at my direct number or my email. There's all kinds of different ways to get a hold of me through my YouTube channel, my Facebook, my whatever. And I would be more than happy to talk with you. And I work with a lot of financial planners. I'm sure Jonathan does as well, who are just looking out for their clients and want to be able to tell their clients the best way to approach things to pay the least amount of taxes that they actually have to pay. So, more than happy to help there. Angie says, I like your father. Yeah, I did too. He was kind of cool. Man did CPA work until he was 92 years old, and taught me a lot of what I know about life and business and accounting and you name it. He was a great guy. So I appreciate that. Thank you, Angie. I kind of like him too. If you have any comments, questions, please feel free, either if you're with us live or you're on the recorded version of this, leave those in the comments section. If we get them after the live stream today, we will answer them by email. If it's for Jonathan or if it's for me, we'll make sure that you get an answer to your question sooner rather than later. If you have any suggested topics for the Mr. Cashflow Live series, please let me know. I'm more than happy to schedule some things. Another thing that my dad taught me was, if you don't know about a topic, surround yourself with experts who do. So I'll be having various experts from all over the country in different areas, like the real estate professional designation and the activity grouping election with the IRS and cost segregation and probably a whole bunch of other ones. Would love to have you join us in the future. Any last words, Jonathan? Any last piece of wisdom you have?
I think you said it perfectly. You know, you trust your financial advisor, you trust your CPA, you find those individuals that you put a lot of trust in, and you ask their advice because you can't afford to make mistakes when you're in business. So you want to make sure that you work with experts in their fields and
Good.
you know,
You're right.
trust the things that they tell you.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, thank you guys for joining us. We're grateful to have you with us. Hope to see you on the next edition of Mr. Cashflow Live.